Hello, I'm Rafe. Welcome to my channel, Full Frank. Today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on configuring the Velocity One Flight Turtle Beach's flight controller. It doesn't work with Star Citizen at the moment, so I'm going to walk through how I made that work correctly. Since version 1.1, which was released a month or so ago, I'm now at the end of February 2022, it will let you map Elite Dangerous, Project Cars, other games, but for some reason Star Citizen's still not working. Now when you try to do any controller mapping and key binding in Star Citizen, it lets you set up all the buttons on the controller, the throttles on the top and the front of the controller, and this trim. That all works fine, but unfortunately the yoke doesn't work. It doesn't see it, but I did find a workaround. If you want to play Microsoft Flight Simulator, works great. If you want to play Elite Dangerous, Project Cars, you have to set the mapping up, but it works great. I've been revisiting Elite Dangerous and enjoying that. That's great fun. So let's get into what you need to do to map the controller. Now, unfortunately, it's going to be pretty boring. It's dull, but once it is configured, it's set up as a controller. We'll be using some software. Universal Control Remapper will allow you to map the output of the wheel and the hats, etc., on the controller and map them to a virtual joystick. Now what this does is, once it's configured in Star Citizen, it will see the virtual joystick when you start doing your mappings, and that will allow you to set up the wheel, the pitch, the yaw, the roll, and all of the buttons are available to map. Okay, to give you an idea of the issue, I've got the control panel open and I'm looking at the devices. Sometimes this shows an error, sometimes not, so I'm not going to dwell on that. But basically, if you click on a controller, right click I should say, open the game controller settings, it shows you all the different devices that are plugged in as game controllers. And the Velocity One has two of these, 3-axis 20-button gamepad with hat switch, and this one here too. Now, if I double click on this, it shows me a panel where I can test it. Now, this particular one is the quadrant, so you can see when I move the throttle and these throttles, you can see they're having an effect. And when you do all your mapping, here's the buttons, see? So when you do all your mappings in the game, you can key bind to or bind to these things, which is all lovely and works fine. I'll show you the other 3-axis 20-button game with hat switch, and none of this works. So what I'm going to do is use Universal Control Remapper to map all of the 3-axis 20 buttons to a virtual joystick. Okay, let's download these. So here's vJoy. I'm going to get the latest version, which I'm aware is actually of another fork here. So I'll select that. Select this. The latest version of vJoy, download the setup. Now I go and configure it. Let's configure vJoy. There we go. Now you can have a ton of devices. So I'm selecting device 1. Now it had 3 axis, 20 buttons, if I remember rightly. So I'm going to minimize that. Now let's go and get the UCR latest version. So the page I came from, let's go back because I've jumped a step. This is where I came. GitHub Snooty, UCR. Go down to the release. Brings me to this page and I want to download this zip file. Yep. Going to put this onto the desktop. Going to extract here. Click that, don't need that anymore. Right, so when I run UCR, the very first thing I'm going to do select and pin to taskbar. Also going to move it along a bit because to use Star Citizen you'll need to run this each time you boot the machine. Okay, this is the log part, but it's exciting. Well, the results are, especially if you spent all that money on this controller and you can't play Star Citizen. So I'm going to create a profile. I'm going to call it V1. Now it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to do this first. I'm guessing it's this second one from when we looked at those device tests earlier. I'm going to map it to vJoystick 1, which is the virtual joystick we set up. Hit create. Now this gives me this mapping thing here. Now this is kind of cool. I'm going to do axis to axis. So this is going to be X. And I'm going to click on here. Rather than do click to bind, I'm going to go through this, setting up X-axis, mapping to X-axis on the joystick. Then I'm going to do another axis to axis, X, Y, okay, that's them added. I close that down, we have V1 here. If I double click it, it opens it up, it shows me the mappings again. So this is as big and clunky as a UI, but it's okay. So let's start. Now that's basically doing the mapping now. So if I go and get up my control panel again, pull the control panel, then I do game controller settings, and I open up, that's still not going to work, but I should have the vJoy device. Double click on that, and that's what I'm mapping to. Now I'm moving the joystick and it's hitting my mic, but there you go. And then that's the X and Y and the Z that we mapped. So it's working. I've picked the right device. So now I've got to finish mapping it. So let's take this out of the way. So now I want to map my buttons button to button. Oh, sorry, got to stop it so that I can add more. Right, add a mapping. P1. Button 1. Told you it was exciting. Next one. B2. B20. I wonder if that messed with the B20 I created earlier. So let's see, we've got B20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Right, so now let's do the POV. Have we got 2? I think we have. POV 1. POV, yeah, 1. Oh, got to do each one. Okay. Up. It's annoying, isn't it? But okay, it's worth it. Let me just copy. Okay. POV 1 up. POV 1 down. Hit play. Maybe I should save it. All right, hit play and get my control panel thingy back up. And then right click, game controller settings. Go down to vJoy device. Okay, so now I have, watch my mic, push forward, back, rotate right, left, you're good, X and Y, so everything's working. So I'm going to click OK to that, I'm going to click OK to that, I'm going to leave that running. Actually, I'll stop it, I'll show you what I do when I boot. Close that down, don't need that anymore, close that down. So when I go to play Star Citizen, I click on the UCR icon. This comes up. I click on V1. I hit play. And that's it. Let me just show you those controllers again. vJoy device. And it's working. So when you want to check that it's working all right, or you're struggling with the mapping, I've generally keep this pinned to the taskbar. I keep the config pinned to my taskbar, so my desktop generally has these 3 at the bottom. This one, right, so once I've booted my machine, I'll kick this off, I'll hit play, I'll open the device driver, view devices, I'll right click on any of these, game controller setting, go to vJoy device, and then just wiggle it about. Here you go. Now you have to go through the rigmarole of going into Star Citizen and doing the mapping, but this is set. This will remember it now. If you want to play a different game, open this up and stop the controller remap. You're good to go. So I won't walk you through Star Citizen key bindings. You can do that yourself. I'm Rafe. You've been full franked. Thank you very much.